Welcome back to Stormi Tells Ghost Stories Haunted Paris on my Girls Rock Productions channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like what you see. In this week's episode, we are going to talk about the medieval building built for archbishops, an island that was where one of the goriest days in the Hundred Days' War took place, a former monastery haunted by a white lady, and an awe-inspiring fortress in western France, Hôtel de Sens, Le Mont Saint-Michel, l'Abbaye de Mortemer, and Le Chateau de Chateaubriant. I'm going to start with what was once the royal residence of Catherine de Medici, the Hôtel de Sens. Like much of Paris, l'Hôtel de Sens has a rich and dark history. Built in the late 15th century, its story is that of evolution and transformation. It was originally built as the residence of the Archbishops of Sens, which is a small town just southeast of Paris. It was passed into the hands of various noble families, including the notorious de Guise family, and it would finally become the royal residence of the Queen Mother Catherine de Medici. During the French Revolution, the building was transformed again, this time into a prison. The building's elegant rooms were turned into dungeons, and it would become a place of great suffering and despair. Then next, it would be sold to a baker, becoming a bakery for almost a century. It would be purchased by the city of Paris in the early 20th century and is now the public library, Forney Library, which is a renowned repository of art and design resources. Because of all these different uses over the centuries, many people believe that the history has left its mark on the building. This leads to the rumors of the building being haunted by the spirits of those who suffered inside the walls. The most famous ghost story out of l'Hôtel de Sens is that of a young woman. According to legend, she was a noblewoman who fell in love with a commoner. This would outrage her family, causing them to lock her away in a tower in the l'Hôtel de Sens. The woman spent months in that tower, pining for her love and slowly losing her grip on reality. Then, one day, she leapt from the tower to her death on the cobblestones below. Since that day, her ghostly figure has been seen gliding through the halls. She's been seen in the library as well as in mirrors and photographs. Some people will even hear the voice of a young woman calling out for help to this day. There are other activity that is from the young woman as well. People also report hearing phantom footsteps echoing throughout the hallways, as well as mysterious knocks and bangs coming from what are found to be empty rooms. Cold spots and ghostly presences are also said to be felt throughout the building. Even a pair of ghostly hands was once seen flipping through pages one late night in the library. Another person actually saw what they thought was a person standing in one of the windows, and upon further investigation they found that the window was sealed shut and impossible to open. Now let's leave this haunted library and head over to an island where 2,000 Englishmen were sent to their slaughter, Le Mont Saint-Michel. Le Mont Saint-Michel is located in France off the Normandy coast. Its only connection to the mainland is a road that gets flooded during high tide. It is an isolated abbey that could trap you if you're not too careful. It was built in the 8th century, and one of the first legends of the isle is its origin story for why the abbey was built. The story goes that the Archangel Michael sent Saint-Aubert a dream to begin building at the location. At first, the Archbishop would ignore this dream because, after all, it was a dream, and because of this, the Archangel would burn a hole in his head. The original structure obviously wouldn't be as grand, having been built in the 8th century, but over the years, new structures were added. The island was originally called Mont until the bishop built a small chapel there, and shortly after, the abbey would also be built. It became a place of pilgrimage due to its isolated location and treacherous trek. It was also nicknamed the City of Books because a large amount of the manuscripts and books were created and stored on site. Isolation of the island was also made it an impressive stronghold over its history. King Philippe would try to conquer it, but he failed. Mont Saint-Michel also withstood both the 100 Years' War between France and England and the France Wars of Religion. During this time, its residents would add new structures to defend against attacks. Parts of it were damaged during the battle, but the overall structure remains. During the 100 Years' War, Captain Louis d'Osteville, sorry, not the best with the French pronunciations, but he would lead his men. He led his men in the slaughter of 2,000 Englishmen. Legend has it that before the water returned, the sand was stained red with their blood as far as the eye could see. The primary residents of Mont Saint-Michel for most of its history were monks, but in the 17th century, they had to start sharing their space with prisoners. Eventually, the monks would get kicked out completely, and they would be replaced by priests who were imprisoned for refusing to take an oath because it was against their beliefs. It was nicknamed Bastille of the Sea and remained a prison until 1863. Its long dark history has led to many ghostly stories. The Englishmen slaughtered on the beaches are still seen on the grounds to this day, as well as Captain d'Usteville protecting the abbey to this day. Reports of the monks that lived there and died on the island are also made by visitors to the island. Today, Mont Saint-Michel is a major tourist attraction, but it also has a small village of about 50 people. From a royal residence that evolved into a prison to an abbey that also evolved into a prison. Next up, a monastery where King Henry I would send his daughter, l'Abbaye de Mortemer. The 12th century Abbey de Mortemer is located in Normandy, and it's rumored to be one of the most haunted places in France. In its heyday, it was one of the largest Cistercian monasteries in the world. Mortemer has a rather creepy origin story, as it was built in 1134 on land that was gifted to the Cistercians by King Henry I of England. The monks who built the abbey first had to dry and reclaim the marshy lands, which they needed to do to place the foundation. This was a very putrid spot that was known to the locals as Mortemer, which translates to dead pond, giving the abbey its name. Due to being underfunded or possibly being cursed, Mortemer never seemed to thrive the way it was meant to. When it was occupied during the French Revolution, it had fallen into complete disrepair, but there were still a small community of monks believed to be half mad, living at and tending to the abbey in 1790. Legend has it that they murdered 4 monks who continued to reside there. They dragged them down into the cellars to do so. The monks' blood and wine from the overturned jugs intermingled on the floor, leaving a gruesome scene. Another legend of l'Abbaye de Mortemer is that of Empress Mathilde of England, the daughter of Henry I, who was forced to remain inside the confines of the abbey for 5 years by her father. After she passed away in nearby Rouen, her spirit went back to the abbey, where she roams the hallways and is known as the Dame Blanche, the White Lady. She is seen wearing white. For the people who see her, if she's wearing white gloves, you'll be getting married within the year. But if she is wearing black gloves, the person who sees her will die within the year. The murdered monks also are said to haunt the now skeletal remains of the abbey. There is even an account of a benevolent robed spirit emerging from the forest surrounding the abbey during World War I, saving an English paratrooper from enemy attack by leading him to a hideout. But not all spirits are benign in the ruins of this once proud monastery. According to several accounts, the abbey and its adjoining 18th century mansion have struck fear into the hearts of many owners over the last few hundred years. This would include the wealthy Dolores family, who would actually perform exorcisms there in 1921 after an abundant amount of terrifying experiences. In one room above the refectory, known as the Pink Room. It is allegedly so haunted by both the processions of ghostly monks, and an unnamed demonic presence that the owners refused to set foot in the room. The story goes that the family would leave the home after activity continued despite the exorcisms. From an abbey turned prison during the French Revolution to a bloody scene on a beach during the 100 Years' War. From an abbey that became a prison for priests to an abbey whose name translates to Dead Pond. Now, let's leave the site of the massacre of monks and head to our final stop this week, a magnificent castle whose roots go back to the 11th century, Chateau de Chateaubriant. The Chateau de Chateaubriant was first constructed in the 11th century, but it was heavily renovated during the Renaissance. It was taken over by the French during the Mad War. Over the centuries, it has a large range of uses, from the dwelling of aristocrats to a jail holding prisoners of war. Nestled in the town of Chateaubriant in western France, the Chateau de Chateaubriant is a magnificent castle and awe-inspiring fortress. The original structure of the chateau was a simple wooden fortification constructed by the lords of Chateaubriant. It would undergo many renovations over the centuries to become the beautiful chateau we know today. It was reconstructed into a magnificent stone chateau in the 13th century, and this is when it would become home to many noble families. The chateau would play a significant role in the region's history, serving as a military stronghold during the 100 Years' War. It also was occupied by the English in the 14th century. The 16th century was a tumultuous time for the Chateaubriant, as it would become the center of the French Wars of Religion. It was then turned into a prison during the French Revolution, like pretty much every other structure in this video. Today, the castle is a historic monument that attracts tourists from all over the world. One of Chateau de Chateaubriant's most famous ghost stories is that of Sybil, the wife of Geoffroy V. Geoffroy V was the Viscount of Chateaubriant in the 13th century. He would go on a crusade to the Holy Land in the 1250s with King Saint Louis. The Viscount would be jailed in Egypt after the Battle of Mont, when the entire French army was destroyed by the plague. The news of his death would be announced to Chateaubriant and his wife. Sybil de la Bouche de Conde, more commonly known as Sybil, started to mourn the death of her husband, but in shocking twist, Geoffroy wasn't dead. He was released from prison and returned to his home and his wife a couple months later. When Sybil saw her husband standing in front of her, she fell into his arms and died of shock. While Sybil can be heard wandering the castle from time to time, she isn't the most famous legend to come out of Chateau de Chateaubriant. That would be Françoise de Foix. Françoise de Foix was the main mistress of King Francis I. She was a tall and dark-haired woman who spoke both Latin and Italian. She would also write her own poetry. All these attributes brought her many suitors. Even the king wanted her. She was engaged to Jean de Laval, the Viscount of Chateaubriant, in 1505. This engagement was supported by King Louis VII and Queen Anne de Breton, and they were formally married in 1509, beginning their life together at the Chateau de Chateaubriant. There was a shift in power in the royal family, and the new king, Francis I, summoned Jean de Laval to court for his advice in 1516. Françoise de Foix would follow her husband, and she would take on the job of lady-in-waiting for Queen Claude de France. Her main job would eventually become the chief mistress of the king. At official events, she would be placed next to the royal princesses, signifying that she was Lamia du Roi, or Sweetheart of the King, to the rest of the court. Jean de Laval was sent to the front in the Italian Wars and would become the governor of Brittany in 1531. He knew of the affair, but he would seem unaffected by it when his wife would remain the king's mistress for over a decade. Though I doubt he would have said anything if he did have a problem with it. I mean, it was the king. After a decade, Françoise de Foix was starting to show her age. She was rejected in 1525 when King Francis I decided to trade in for a younger blonde, André Pissoulou du Lille. Yeah, sorry, my French isn't the best. She would return to live with her husband in Chateau de Chateaubriant after that. She would die October 16, 1537. The official story is that it was from illness, but some rumors do circle today that her husband murdered her. The story gains more credibility when you learn about Jean de Laval. Jean de Laval is also known as John III of Laval-Chambrion. Legend has it that he was a bloodthirsty baron who would kill anyone who opposed him and would ruthlessly torture his enemies. According to some rumors, he shut his wife in a dark and padded cell and had her killed because of her relationship with the king. They even go as far as to say she was locked up and poisoned or slowly bled to death. To this day, people will hear her weeping throughout the halls of the castle. Others have even seen her standing in the windows atop the towers in the 16th century dress. The most famous stories about Françoise de Foix, however, is that of the ghost procession on the anniversary of her death. Ever since her death, there has been a ghost procession in the Chateau de Chateaubriant in her honor. On the first stroke of midnight on October 16th, monks and knights slowly ascend the main stairs before vanishing on the final stroke. Her ghost is also said to return at this time to watch this procession. Well, that concludes this week 4 of Stormi Tells Ghost Stories Haunted Paris. I hope you enjoyed hearing some more of the darkest stories the City of Love has to offer. From the former home of one of France's most infamous queen mothers, to an abbey that was inspired by a dream, from an abbey built in a marsh to a site of an annual ghostly procession. Remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to check out some of my other playlists while you are here. On Stormi Teaches Music, I release a cover video on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and a video of me teaching the song covered on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can catch the live stream of the lesson on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on my Patreon. On the Stormi Does Art playlist, I have some partial videos of the live stream that you can get on my Patreon for the gold tier or higher. These streams are daily at 1 p.m. Eastern. There's a link to my Patreon in the description box below. Finally, check out Stormi Talks True Crime for some of the most heinous crimes in history. New videos are posted on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. For anyone who wants to make a one-time donation to the channel to help keep it running while I'm building my audience, there is a QR code to my Venmo and CashApp on the screen. There is also a link to both in the description box below. If you are ever in Wilmington area, sign up for the Wilmington Ghosts Walking Tour or Wilmington Spirits and Spirits Pub Crawl with U.S. Ghost Adventures. You can have me or one of our other talented tour guides show you around our historic downtown and hear some of the darkest stories the beautiful city on the beach has to offer. While you're visiting, if you do decide that you want to stay or buy a vacation home, check out my Moving to Coastal Carolina channel and contact me, as I am a licensed realtor in the southeastern North Carolina area. Tune in next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the next video on Stormi Tells Ghost Stories Haunted Paris. Until then, have a great week and be safe.